Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Today's story doesn't begin with love. It begins with a locked bathroom door, a foggy mirror, and a note she never meant me to see. It was supposed to be just another Tuesday night. The kind where she comes home late, tosses her heels into the hallway, mumbles something about being exhausted, and vanishes upstairs. I usually pretend to be asleep by then. That way I don't have to ask where she was. That way she doesn't have to lie. But that night, the upstairs bathroom door was locked. The water was running. For nearly 20 minutes. I knocked once. No answer. Knocked again. Still nothing. And then I saw it. A yellow post-it note. Half tucked under the corner of her laptop on the kitchen table. The only reason I noticed it was because it had my name on it. But it wasn't to me. It was about me. It read: "If Royce asks, tell him Miles isn't coming. He never fits in at these things anyway. That's me. Miles. Not my husband. Not my partner. Just Miles. The man who built her IKEA furniture when she got promoted. The guy who hand-washed her blouses because the tag said delicate. The one who used to make her laugh so hard she'd choke on cereal." I stood there holding that note like it was radioactive. That's when the bathroom door opened. She didn't expect me to be downstairs. She didn't expect to see that note in my hand. She froze mid-step, her hair wrapped in a towel, her skin glowing with steam and guilt. The silence between us was so thick, I swear I could hear her heartbeat. "I was going to tell you," she said. But she didn't even try to explain what. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, "I'll drive you to the party." She blinked. "What? You don't want me there?" "Fine. But I'm still your husband. And your husband will drop you off at your boss's party with dignity." She didn't argue. So I drove her. In silence. The kind of silence that wraps around your chest like wet cement. At the front gate of Royce's ridiculous glass palace, she leaned over, brushed invisible lint off my shoulder, and whispered, "Don't make this awkward." Then she got out. No kiss. No thank you. No, "I'll see you later." I sat in that car, in that driveway, for almost 10 full minutes. And then I went in. Yeah. I walked in. To her party. Her world. And what I saw in there shattered something in me I didn't know could still break. But the real twist? It came minutes after I left. Because the woman who said I didn't belong. She texted me, right as I turned the ignition. "Please come back." And that's where it really starts. If you think that's the worst of it, oh, you have no idea what comes next. I didn't reply to her text. Not right away. Not even after reading it 5 times. Instead, I sat there in the car, still parked on the side of the hill in front of that oversized glass mansion, watching people move inside like shadows behind a fishbowl. Everyone in that party looked expensive, the kind of people who drink without sipping and compliment without meaning it. But what haunted me was that she looked like she belonged there. And I didn't. That message, "Please come back," sat on my screen like bait. I knew better than to fall for it. But that was the problem. I didn't want to be better anymore. I wanted answers. So I got out of the car. I didn't walk through the front again. I found a path around the side of the property. There was a stretch of hedges, some soft lights along a patio, and a sliding glass door half open to let the laughter spill into the night. I stood outside, behind one of those hedges, hiding like a coward, or a ghost, and watched her. She didn't know I had returned. She stood just a few feet inside, in a circle of people. I recognized Royce, the boss. Tall, sharp suit, that confident tilt of his head like he owned the air people breathed around him. He had one hand in his pocket and the other casually gesturing while he spoke, as if even his words deserved space. Mallory was smiling. No, glowing. Not the tired smile she gave me at home. This one was electric. Alive. And when Royce leaned in and said something low to her, something no one else could hear, she laughed. I hadn't heard that laugh in over a year. And in that moment, I felt something cold and ugly sit in the center of my chest. I thought, what if this whole marriage was just a placeholder? Just then, she turned. I flinched and ducked, but she wasn't looking for me. She was looking for him. Royce had already moved across the room, and she was following him with her eyes like she didn't even realize it. And that's when I saw it. Her hand reached into her clutch. She pulled out her phone. Her fingers flew across the screen. My phone buzzed. I stepped back into the shadows and checked it. Are you home? I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to come off that way. Can we talk? I froze. I didn't know what game she was playing, but whatever it was, I wasn't in control of it. 1 second I was invisible, the next I was being summoned like a backup singer in her perfect live performance. I could have walked in right then. I could have made a scene. I could have called her out in front of her boss, her fake friends, everyone. But I didn't. I left. Not home. Not yet. I drove to the beach instead. Sat on a cold bench under the dark sky with waves crashing in the distance and tried to remember when I stopped being someone she respected. At 1:12 a.m., another text came. I need you to come back. I messed up. And this time. She attached a photo. Not of her. Of a letter. A printed resignation notice. Signed. Dated. Hers. And beneath it, in shaky handwriting. I realized something tonight. You'll see why tomorrow. I stared at it, mouth dry. My heart didn't know whether to jump or sink. Was she actually quitting? Was this guilt? Or was it something else entirely? Because that letter wasn't dated for today. It was signed yesterday morning. Before the party. Before the note I found. Before she acted like I didn't exist. I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed on that beach bench until the moon sank behind the horizon and the air turned sharp with morning chill. My phone sat next to me like a loaded weapon. That photo, her resignation letter, replayed in my mind again and again. Not because of what it said, but because of when it was written. It didn't make sense. She signed it the day before the party. But if she had already quit, why go to the party at all? Why spend the entire night wrapped around her boss like she was still trying to impress him? And if she was quitting for me, why would she write a note calling me out like an embarrassment? Unless the resignation wasn't about me at all. By 6 a.m., I was parked outside our house, engine still running. The windows were fogged from my breath. I watched the porch light flicker off, motion sensor, and thought about how that light always turned on for her, never for me. I finally walked inside. The house was silent. No apology waiting at the door. No tearful hug. Just a note on the kitchen island. Yes. Another note. This one said. Didn't sleep. I'm going for a walk. We'll talk when I get back. Please read the letter on the table. And there it was. A printed copy of the same resignation form. Same date. Same signature. But this time, she'd written something else at the bottom. In bold, underlined pen. Before you hate me, ask me about Savannah. Savannah. That name dropped into my chest like a stone. I hadn't heard it in months. She was Mallory's coworker. Young. Smart. Quiet. The kind of girl who always stayed late and never took credit. Harper once told me Savannah reminded her of her younger self. But she hadn't mentioned her since spring. I stared at the note. That name didn't make any sense here, until I checked my email. Because apparently, Harper had forwarded me something hours ago. A single screenshot. No explanation. It was a message from Savannah. Dated a week ago. Sent to HR. This is not easy to say, but I feel compelled to report inappropriate conduct by Mr. Royce Delaney. I've avoided speaking up due to fear of retaliation. But it has gone on long enough. I am not the only one. I blinked. I read it again. And again. My mouth went dry. It wasn't just about Mallory quitting. It was about her covering for Savannah. It was about her choosing to burn her career behind closed doors, while putting on a perfect act in public. My first instinct was shame. For doubting her. For thinking she was flirting, playing the role of some corporate seductress, when in reality she was setting the stage to destroy the very man everyone else bowed to. But that guilt was short-lived. Because the deeper I looked, the more the pieces refused to fit. If she was quitting because of Royce, if she was doing the right thing, then why hide it from me? Why humiliate me at the party? Why lie? Unless she had something to hide, too. I dug further. There's something about desperation that makes you smarter. Or maybe just more reckless. I remembered Harper's laptop password. Yes, I know how that sounds, and when I opened her inbox, I didn't find what I was hoping for. I found what I was afraid of. An unsent draft email addressed to Savannah. Just a few lines long. I covered for you. But I need you to delete the voice memo. Royce can't find out. Neither can Miles. I sat back in the chair, heart pounding like a slow drum. My hands went numb. What voice memo? What had she said? And why couldn't I know? That's when the front door creaked. She was home. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just sat there, staring at her as she stepped into the kitchen and froze. Her eyes locked onto her laptop screen. Then onto me. Then, silence. And in that awful stillness, I finally asked it. What's on the recording? She didn't answer. She just looked at me like someone who'd rehearsed 1,000 lies and still wasn't sure which one to use. She didn't move. Neither did I. We just stood there, in that low morning light that made everything look softer than it should have, like the room was trying to lie for her. My laptop sat between us, her draft email still open, the one that said, I need you to delete the voice memo. She opened her mouth once, twice, like she wanted to say something, anything. But I beat her to it. I want to hear it. Her shoulders sank. She didn't ask what I wanted to hear. She didn't pretend to be confused. She just looked, tired. Like the lie had gotten heavier than the truth. After a moment, she nodded. Walked slowly to the coffee table where her phone was charging. She entered the passcode without hesitation, which only made me more suspicious. She knew I wouldn't stop digging. She was choosing how I'd find out. She opened her voice memos. Scrolled. Tapped on one file near the bottom. It was titled, Don't Show Miles. And she pressed play. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath. At first, all I heard was background noise. Like wind through an open window. Distant laughter. Then her voice, Harper's voice, whispering, nervous and breathy. Just, don't touch me like that in front of them. Miles was watching. Another voice. Male. Sharp. Confident. He doesn't matter. He's background. You said so yourself. There was a pause. My heart punched the inside of my ribs. That's not fair, Harper whispered. He's still my husband. On paper. But come on, Harper. You said it yourself, this job was your out. I didn't mean it like that. Didn't you? There was a sound then. I don't know how to describe it. A shift in her tone. A half laugh. And then she said something that genuinely knocked the wind out of me. I just thought by now he'd get the hint. That if he really loved me, he'd let me go. I felt that line hit somewhere under my skin. Like it was tearing through memories, cutting everything I thought we still had. I looked at her. She wouldn't meet my eyes. The recording continued. Royce again. So you'll come with me after this? No more second guessing. I need a few more days. I need to do this gently. And then, this part's burned into my mind. Royce, you know he'll fall apart without you. Harper laughs softly, I know. That was it. She stopped the playback. I didn't say anything for at least a full minute. I just stood there. I wasn't angry, not in the way movies show anger, with yelling and broken glass. I was just hollow. Like my body had heard the truth and was trying to figure out how to keep standing anyway. She whispered, "It's not what it sounds like." Of course she said that. But she was wrong. It was exactly what it sounded like. She was preparing to leave me, emotionally, practically, logistically, while still sleeping in our bed and pretending her late nights were project deadlines. She was going to walk away without saying a word. Just vanish, like a magician's final act. A clean break, with no messy scenes. No confrontation. Just absence. She didn't want a divorce. She wanted to drift out of my life. And then Savannah blew the whistle. The memo exposed Royce. And suddenly, Mallory's carefully designed exit plan, her quiet getaway with her powerful boss, collapsed under the weight of someone else's courage. That's why she sent the resignation. Not for morality. Not for Savannah. For damage control. I looked at her one last time and asked. Were you going to tell me anything at all, if none of this happened? She stared at the floor. And that silence. That told me everything I needed to know. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't even sit still. I walked from room to room like the walls might give me answers she wouldn't. Every sound in the house felt sharper. Every quiet creak was like an echo of what we used to be, the hum of her old toothbrush charger, the faint ticking of the dining room clock, the barely there rattle of the window in the guest room that I never bothered fixing because she said she liked the sound of the wind. All of it used to feel like home. Now it just felt staged. Harper went to bed without saying anything else. No apology. No explanation. Just a closed door. But me? I stayed up. My mind wasn't done spinning. I kept coming back to that memo, not just what was said, but how it was said. She hadn't sounded afraid in the recording. Not pressured. Not cornered. She'd sounded willing. Calculating. She laughed. She laughed about me falling apart. How do you come back from something like that? But at 4:12 a.m. something shifted. Because that's when I got the message. Not from her. From Savannah. It came through an old group chat on a forgotten platform we all used when Harper and Savannah were working late on that tax arbitration case a year ago. I hadn't thought twice about it. Didn't even realize I still had notifications on. Her message just said. Miles. I think you need to know what really happened. I'm sorry for what she put you through. I didn't know she recorded that until I overheard her telling Royce she planned to edit parts if needed. I sat straight up in the dark. Edit parts. What parts? I typed back instantly. I don't even remember exactly what I wrote. Something desperate. Maybe too many question marks. She replied almost immediately. She told him you were emotionally unstable. That if it came to light, she could use the voice memo to paint you as controlling. Like you were the reason she had to leave. She was preparing for a clean break, but also legal cover. My throat went dry. I reread it twice, then again. I stared into the black screen like it might offer me some kind of logic, some twist where none of it was true. But it felt true. Every line of it. I remembered the times Harper had gently told her friends that I was too sensitive. That I overthink things. That she needed space, because I could be overwhelming when I got emotional. I brushed it off. I told myself it was just her way of venting. But now, I saw it clearly, the groundwork of a narrative. One where I'd be the one left in therapy, confused, while she reinvented herself as the brave survivor. I asked Savannah if she still had the unedited file. She did. She sent it. And it was worse than I imagined. Because in the full recording, after the part where Harper said, "He should have let me go," there was more. Something she definitely cut before showing it to me. "Royce, so, do you want me to send the funds to that account now?" Harper, "Yes. Miles doesn't check our joint account often. He won't notice." Royce, "You sure?" Harper, "By the time he does, I'll be gone." I dropped the phone. Sat in stunned silence. Funds? What funds? I sprinted to my laptop. Logged into our banking app. It took a minute for the page to load, probably because my fingers were shaking so badly. And then I saw it. 10 separate transfers. All under the $5,000 reporting threshold. All sent to a name I didn't recognize, Miller Creek Consulting. Over the last 6 weeks. Totaling nearly $42,000. My hands were ice. My chest felt tight, like someone was pressing a boot into my ribs. She was planning to disappear. Not just emotionally. Not just physically. Financially. She was emptying our lives behind my back, drip by drip, smiling at me while she did it. That text, "Please come back," was never about love. It was about delay. It was about buying time. She never thought I'd walk into that party. Never thought I'd hear the truth. And now? Now I was sitting here, at 4 in the morning, realizing the woman I loved had been constructing my collapse like it was an art project. And that resignation letter? That wasn't redemption. That was escape. But not anymore. I wasn't just some sad husband she could ghost out of her story. Not anymore. By the time the sun rose, I had a plan. Not a revenge fantasy. Not a dramatic confrontation. Something colder. Quieter. The kind of plan someone like her would never see coming, because it didn't involve screaming or slamming doors. It involved control. And for once, I had it. She was still asleep, probably pretending to be too exhausted from her fake remorse to deal with reality. Or maybe she knew the truth was unraveling and decided her safest move was to retreat into sleep. Either way, I didn't wake her. Instead, I walked into our closet, packed a single bag, and grabbed the envelope I kept hidden behind the insulation in the garage wall, the one with all the documents she forgot existed. The prenup she assumed I'd never enforce. The savings account under my name only. The list of passwords she once gave me during a rare moment of trust, when she still believed we were partners. I called a friend. Micah. We hadn't talked much in the past few months, mostly because I'd slowly stopped reaching out to people. That was part of her strategy, I think, subtle isolation. Guilt-tripping me for spending too much time with people who didn't understand what it meant to be driven. Micah was the last real connection I had left. He answered on the second ring. Miles. Hey. I need a place to stay. Not for long. Just, long enough. He didn't even hesitate. Get here. I left a note on the counter. Nothing dramatic. Just. Since you're good at preparing exits, I figured I'd give it a try. Don't worry, I'm not taking anything you'll miss. Except maybe your illusion of control. No name. No signature. Just that. Then I left. Drove with the windows down, letting the air slap me awake. I felt something inside me crack open, not with grief, but with clarity. Like I'd been underwater for so long I forgot what breathing felt like. And now, finally, I was above the surface. Micah's place was small, a studio above a bookstore, but it was perfect. No trace of her. No scent of her shampoo. No ghost of our marriage on the furniture. Just silence, and my own thoughts, and a worn-out leather chair that didn't judge me when I cried into my hands for 20 minutes. But I didn't stay down. I started documenting everything. The financial transfers. Screenshots of the voice memo. Backups of her messages to Royce. The resignation letter. The email to Savannah. Every piece of evidence I could gather, I stored on an encrypted drive, and then I sent copies to a lawyer. Her name was Cheryl Trask. Mid-50s, quiet voice, no-nonsense attitude. I picked her because she specialized in marital financial misconduct and had a reputation for taking on cases with a moral edge. When I walked into her office 2 days later, I laid everything out in front of her. She listened. Didn't interrupt once. And when I finished, she leaned forward, fingers steepled beneath her chin, and said, "You've been passive long enough. Let's turn that into leverage." That was the first time I smiled in days. We filed for a temporary freeze on our joint accounts within 24 hours. I used the last bit of remaining funds in my personal account, the one she didn't touch, to cover legal fees. And then, with Cheryl's guidance, I sent Harper a message. Short. Surgical. You'll notice our accounts are inaccessible. I've retained legal counsel. All communication moving forward should go through her. I expected an immediate reply. A rage storm. Tears. Some manipulation. But I got silence. 4 hours. Until finally, a single message. "You don't understand what you're doing." I laughed out loud. Because I finally did. I knew exactly what I was doing. She built an escape plan on the assumption I'd stay the same, predictable, emotional, quiet. She never accounted for the version of me who could get quietly dangerous. The version who could weaponize the very same silence she once used to control me. And then, just when I thought I had the upper hand, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. No postmark. Inside was a single sentence. "If you think Harper betrayed you, wait until you find out who helped her." And taped to the bottom, a photo. One I wasn't supposed to see. The envelope had no return address. No markings. Just my name written in delicate handwriting that looked almost apologetic. Like whoever sent it wanted me to brace for what I was about to see. Inside was that single sheet of paper. One line, scrawled in ink. "If you think Harper betrayed you, wait until you find out who helped her." And beneath it, taped to the page with 2 tiny pieces of yellowed tape, was the photo. It wasn't grainy. It wasn't vague. It was crystal clear. It showed Harper sitting at a cafe patio, her sunglasses pushed into her hair, her hand wrapped tightly around someone else's wrist. They weren't smiling. They weren't looking around. They were in deep conversation. But the intimacy in the way their bodies leaned toward each other, it screamed familiarity. And the man across from her was my older brother. Caleb. Not a cousin. Not a coworker. Not some friend I hadn't seen in years. Caleb. The man who gave the toast at our wedding. The guy who helped us move into our first apartment. The same brother who once told me, "You know, if you screw this up with Harper, I'm disowning you." And there he was, caught mid-sentence, hand under hers, his thumb brushing her palm. I stared at that photo like it was a hallucination. I held it up to the light, hoping maybe it was fake, that someone had doctored it, that it was a cruel prank. But I knew that cafe. It was near Harper's old Pilates studio. She used to go there every Friday, after class. And Caleb? He lived 2 hours away. Or so I thought. I sat there for nearly 10 minutes just holding that picture. Trying to remember every recent conversation I'd had with him. When had I last seen him in person? 2 months ago. 3. We'd talked about his new job, some promotion in his tech firm. He asked about Harper, but nothing unusual. Nothing that would have tipped me off. I felt sick. Like truly, physically ill. Not just because he was my brother, but because of what it meant. This wasn't just emotional infidelity. It was logistical. Harper had an accomplice. Someone who knew me well enough to know where I kept things, how I thought, when I'd check our accounts, how I'd react. Someone she could trust to watch her back while stabbing mine. I called Savannah. Yes, Savannah, the one who exposed Royce, the one Harper had tried to silence. She picked up on the second ring. I got a letter, I said. A photo. She was quiet. Too quiet. Savannah, I said slowly, was Caleb part of this? There was a pause. Then, finally, I didn't know how to tell you. That was all the confirmation I needed. Savannah explained that during the weeks leading up to her HR report, she overheard things, late-night conversations between Harper and Royce, but also strange mentions of someone named C. At first, she assumed it meant Caleb, but she brushed it off, until one night, Harper forgot to hang up after a call. Savannah heard Harper say, "He still thinks you're in Sacramento. He has no idea. Thank you for keeping him distracted." And Caleb responded, "It's easy. Miles always needed to be needed. I just gave him space to talk and he filled it." I could barely process the words. I felt like I was floating outside my own body. The betrayal wasn't just marital. It was familial. And the worst part? It was quiet. Surgical. Done by people who knew me well enough to dismantle me without making a sound. I ended the call with Savannah and just sat there in Micah's apartment, surrounded by documents and shattered memories. My hands were shaking. Micah walked in, he'd been out getting groceries, and saw my face. What happened? I handed him the letter. He read it once. Then again. And then, to my surprise, he said, "You're not going to like this. But I've seen them together." I stared at him. "You what?" 3 months ago. I didn't know what I was looking at the time. I ran into them at a gas station outside of town. I thought maybe it was a business meeting or something. But the way she touched his arm. I knew it wasn't nothing. I just didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to be wrong. I felt the world tilt. Everyone had known something. And I'd been sitting in the center of it, completely unaware, convinced I was just going through a rough patch in my marriage. But the patch was never rough. It was a runway. They were preparing for takeoff while I was still unpacking bags. And now? Now I was angry. Not the kind of anger that lashes out. The kind that builds. Slow. Steady. Cold. Because if Caleb was involved, that changed everything. I didn't just want distance anymore. I wanted truth. Publicly. Fully. And thanks to Savannah, I had something Harper didn't know existed yet. A copy of her full conversation with Royce and Caleb. There's a strange kind of peace that comes when you hit the bottom, because after that, every step is a rise. And I wasn't interested in dragging anyone through the mud. I wanted the truth in daylight. I wanted to clean the wreckage, not live in it. After confirming that Savannah still had the unedited files, including a second recording she hadn't shared yet, I worked with my attorney, Cheryl, to carefully package everything into one airtight, undeniable bundle. We didn't go public. Not yet. We went legal. The first move was to file for divorce with grounds of financial deception and marital fraud. Cheryl moved swiftly. The joint accounts had already been frozen, but with the new evidence, we obtained a court injunction that allowed me to temporarily assume control over the remaining shared assets until the investigation was complete. That included access to the Miller Creek Consulting trail, which, as we found out, was a shell account. Caleb had helped her set it up. But here's where it gets poetic. Caleb didn't know Savannah had been looped in. And he had no idea that his voice had been recorded during one of his calls with Harper, a call where he bragged about helping her drain the account like a slow leak. That single recording, 10 minutes long, was enough for Harper's resignation to trigger an internal audit at her firm. Royce had already been under scrutiny due to Savannah's report. With Harper's new financial trail and her connection to Royce, the company's legal team pushed both of them into early settlements to avoid deeper PR damage. And as for Caleb, our parents found out. Not because I told them. Because he confessed, under pressure. He said he was in love, that he didn't mean for it to go that far. He begged me not to destroy him. I didn't. I didn't leak the photos. I didn't take him to court. I just did one thing. I blocked him. On every platform, in every way. That was my justice. My silence, permanent this time, was louder than anything I could have shouted. Harper, for her part, tried to reconcile. Not out of love. Out of fear. She sent one long, meandering email about how everything got away from her, and how she never meant for it to happen like this. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to Cheryl. And then I deleted it. It's been 6 months since then. I moved into a new place. Nothing fancy, just a quiet apartment above a used record store. I work remotely now, consult for startups who actually value what I bring. I started therapy. I drink coffee in the mornings without flinching at phantom texts. I walk without looking over my shoulder. I breathe like I mean it. And I started painting again. Funny how that happens. You get space, real space, and suddenly, your hands remember what it's like to create instead of just hold on. Last week, I even went on a date. It wasn't dramatic. No sparks flying. Just a walk by the lake, 2 people talking like humans, not performances. And I laughed. Not forced. Not polite. Just, real. And that, more than anything, is how I know I'm healing. Not by forgetting what happened, but by owning it. Completely. So to anyone out there who's ever felt erased in their own relationship, you don't need to set fire to the past. Sometimes, you just need to walk away. And build something beautiful from the ashes. Thanks for following this journey here on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever experienced a betrayal that changed your life, or if you had a moment where everything flipped and you came out stronger, tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. And if this one hit home, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your voice deserves to be heard, just like mine finally was.